Hello, hello. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another series of the KeyZ Method. I'm your host, Kris KeyZ, and this is a exciting interview or podcast, Zoom, whatever you want to call it. I got my good friend, Dusty Saxton. I mean, you guys, I know you've seen him. If you're any type of music fan, I love him. He's been all the way in Australia. He's played at Staples Centers. He's played at, was it Stagecoach, 73,000 people. You've been on Jimmy Kimmel, The Late Show. I mean, you've been all over the world. Congratulations on your success in your career, man. Thank you, Dusty, so much for joining the KeyZ Method, man.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I know a little bit about you, man. We go way back several years, but just for the people out there that kind of want to know a little bit about you, where you got your start with music. So where did you start? Your matter of fact, I forgot to say. So he's a phenomenal drummer. Uh, so where did you start playing instruments? Because I don't even know if drums was your main instruments or where you started. So tell a bit about that.
Well, drums was always my main instrument. I started playing drums. I mean, I got my first drum set when I was 2 years old,
Oh wow.
and I grew up in a house that had instruments all over the place. Um, I did eventually learn other instruments, bass and guitar, piano, around fifth grade, and but when I decided that I really wanted to pursue being a full-time, hopefully professional musician, um, I had to choose. I had to kind of pick what felt the most natural to me, and that was the drums. I've been playing drums the longest, um, and in playing other instruments and learning other instruments, it really makes you a better drummer, and it makes you able to play with a band better.
Hmm.
Um, so I felt like I could add more as a drummer in some situations where I would be a bass player for the band. Um, I would sometimes eventually end up playing drums, uh, just because I could maybe listen better. Or being a bass player, you play good with a bass player. Being a guitar player, you play good with a guitar player. Um, so I
Right.
think learning other instruments helped make me a better drummer.
Yeah, for sure. So when you started out, your kids put a drum in front of you at 2 years old. So did you take that and go to any classical trainings throughout school, or how did any of that start?
The only real lessons or anything that I ever got were just through middle school band and high school band and drumline. I never really took any. I didn't take piano lessons or any outside anything really outside what you learn in school.
Sure. I'm gonna keep talking here. So where did you grow up? You grew up in outside of Texas or in Texas, Waco
In
area?
Texas, I grew up between Waco and Temple in a really tiny town called Lorena.
Okay. So all right. So tell me like your first, I guess, performance with the band, like at school, or how did any of that go? Your first time, did you feel you was gonna be a drummer, or is it just like it's what the kids do, or were you taking it serious then?
Oh yeah, yeah. My first performances in front of a crowd were end of year band concerts or jazz band concerts, and um, some of those you're just playing for 20 or 30 people, but
Right.
sometimes you play in front of 200 or 300 people if it's a big school event. And I took
Sure.
those very seriously. I even took the practices seriously. I would count those as my gigs. I would line them up all week, and if I had between drumline and jazz band, if I had something going on every day, I had a full week, and that was a good week for me.
That's pretty cool. So you was already kind of getting into the swing of being around the community of other musicians and all of that. So take me. So how old were you around that age?
Um, that would have been 14, 15, 16.
14, 15. All right. So you move on from that. You went to college playing music as well.
Yeah, I went to
Okay.
college for a short time. I was actually a bass guitar performance major. I was going to major in bass guitar, but I was playing drums for the college jazz program.
Okay.
And I was in a commercial music program that was really kind of opening all of the students it was opening our eyes to the fact that we really should be out working in the music industry if we want a job. Going to college is good,
Right.
but you should already be out trying to get the job that you want. You should be out on your own doing it.
Mm-hmm. So is that a good recommendation you feel like for inspiring artists or musicians, artists, whoever that are kind of at that age point to
for sure.
depend?
I remember being that age where I was thinking, when you graduate high school, not going to college is kind of scary.
Sure.
And when you have the option to go to college for music or commercial music, that kind of becomes a dream. Like, okay, I'm going to go to one of these music colleges, and that's going to be awesome because I'm going to college, but I'm going to college for music. And after that, when I graduate, I'll get some cool job.
Right.
And a lot of times it doesn't work that way. A lot of times people, and you see people in the music business who have your dream job, and they maybe didn't go to college to get it. They just got it through hard work or, through years of trying. So you weigh the option of like, do I want to go to college? Do I need to go to college? Or do I just need to drop everything and go?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to college for about 6 months before I realized I need to just drop everything and go.
Wow. So within 6 months of college, I mean, you took the risk. You took a leap of faith that after 6 months of college per se. Now, was that risk calculated, kind of, sort of, or kind of like, all right, I'm just.
It was I planned it out. I knew I wanted to play in a serious band. And so I searched on Craigslist and MySpace back then, all the bands, classified ads, needing musicians, and I just wanted to be in a band, hopefully to be the drummer.
Right.
I was open to being a bass player. I've been going to college for bass. But when I found one in Austin, I found a band in Austin that was looking for a drummer, and they'd already been a band for 3 or 4 years and had already had some songs recorded that sounded great. And so I knew I would need a job. So I went to a temp agency, filled out applications, and went on some interviews. And I was only moving an hour away. I was only moving to Austin. So
you relocated your whole life, and okay.
I got a job first. I went on an interview, and so when I moved to Austin, I moved for real. I had a job and a band, and I was going to balance both. And the band was not busy yet, so it wasn't
right. It wasn't enough
job I needed
financially to take care of it. Man, that's kind of cool to hear you say, because you hear and see a lot of up and coming musicians and artists who, I love their hustle and their drive, but they kind of see getting a job or some type of side hustle as a bad thing, to help to support.
At some point, it becomes a bad thing if you rely too much on it. But in the very beginning, when I was, living in my small town with just the dream in my head of, I don't want to stay here forever, and I don't want to work this job forever. I want to do this. I want to be a drummer in a serious band. And at that point, yes, you want to be professional and you want to just make money playing drums and not need a job. But in the very beginning, you're willing to do anything. You just want to get out of it. Maybe there's nobody in your town that even cares about being in a band. You just need to get in a whole new group of people.
Right. Kind of find that community.
Yeah. So I got a job and moved to a whole new town, and had already found a band. I didn't move and then start looking. I found them, found a job. It was all about what I needed to make the leap.
Right. So, so it's almost like, okay, there's going to be some struggle. There's going to be some sacrifice and some things I got to kind of, growing pains I got to build up to. And you was willing to take that. And it seems like you was a very smart man. And you was like, okay, if this is going to take me, say, 6 months of grinding my teeth and pounding the pavement, at least I'm going to do it pre-calculated. I already have a band. I'm going to find a little bit of work that can, give me probably like some peanut butter and ramen noodles just to hold me over until I make it, to that next level.
The way I was looking at it, I was already, I mean, my current state was I was 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
Had been living in the same town my whole life, was already a broke 21-year-old kid. This
probably
way,
not so many responsibilities at the time.
This way, at least I was a broke 21-year-old kid in a band that I liked in a new town. That was worth it right there.
And actually pursuing your dreams. And let's get to now that you've put in the work, you've calculated it, you've learned several instruments, you understand it now. So when do you feel like you got your first break?
Well, that first band got some success. We got to the level where I was able to quit the day job after actually it was about a year and a half. It took about a year and a half of hard work, dedicated work from all five of us. We knew we had a good group. We knew we had the talent. So we would practice multiple times a week and really hustle on the booking end and get our shows booked. All the clubs liked us. They would rebook us. We were able to get to a level after about a year and a half where I quit that day job. And then, so then once you quit the day job, you're doing it for real. And it feels really good. But over the next, 2 to 3 years, that band kind of went downhill, and I started to be kind of again on the hustle looking for a new gig, which I hadn't done in 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And I had to learn how to be an independent musician apart from the band that I had been a member of. I started meeting drummers that were just touring drummers who just toured with bands that, they didn't write the songs with, or tour with solo artists. And I was very intrigued by this because in my world at the time, my band was going downhill, which meant I was going downhill.
Right.
And I needed to think, what's going to happen? Because this band is not going to last forever, and I'm going to need something to do after this. And it started to realize that nobody in town knew me, and very few people even knew of my band. They definitely didn't know who I was. So I had to get out and start meeting every musician in town and everyone. I needed to make sure everybody, at least when they think of a drummer, they had to think of me first.
Right.
And that's when I just started meeting people, going to blues jams, going to shows that I wasn't playing at, just going out to see music, making friends and meeting people.
So is that when you got with? So was this Evans Blue, the band you was with?
It was no, this would have been before that. This was when I got my first country gig.
Okay.
I had, which is something that I wouldn't have done when I first moved down to play my rock band. I don't think I would have played country in the very beginning because I don't think I wanted to.
You have never played country before?
Well, I'd played it before.
Or I'm saying you was like more into like rock. You was going for that.
I was more into a certain genre,
Sure.
which I learned later that I had to kind of really open my mind to. And as you grow up you're either going to get a gig or, you're going to turn it down. Like, right. I knew like if a country gig came my way, I was just going to take it because I needed it. Right. And then the more I played, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. Like, why was I so against country gigs in the beginning? I'm from Texas. you grow up in Texas, you grow up at least liking country music. It's not like I had anything against it.
Right.
I just felt like I was a rock drummer. Maybe I felt I wouldn't fit in.
Rock just seemed a little bit more funner at the time.
Yeah, at the
than
time,
country.
as a 21-year-old, rock is what I wanted to play. But when I took my first country gig, I was really, it was very challenging. I had to learn how to really play slow. I had to learn how to play quiet. I knew how to play loud and fast,
Right.
but I had to learn how to play with strangers. Like I had to learn how to play with musicians I didn't know, like new people, new clubs, new everything. It was really cool. And I had my first like independent gig, which felt good. I was surviving without my old band. I was able to just get a gig on my own.
Right. So how old was this? Now you're getting maybe like 20.
Yeah, 24, probably 24. um, and then uh, I was playing more consistently, and I was making a little bit better money.
Now, were you still playing kind of like around town, or were you guys kind of getting outside of state or anything yet?
I was playing mostly in Texas, mostly in the same state.
Okay.
And I really wanted to travel. I wanted to tour nationwide. I wanted to be on a bus. I wanted to
Get the whole full
I wanted to
experience
get,
of
yeah, I wanted to not play the same places all the time. I wanted to go to places I'd never been before.
Sure.
And so, uh, so I had been Facebook friending every drummer I could find and just talking to people and just making sure I made a website. I had a YouTube page with videos. I actually got a lot of gigs just from like when bands need a drummer, sometimes they don't have time to have auditions. So
Right.
it was so easy to just be like, here's some video of me playing so they can at least see, okay, this guy can play. We'll take a chance on him. Just come out, learn the songs.
Yeah. That's a great networking strategy right there for you guys listening, trying to get into bands.
Yeah, like I wanted to make sure that no one had a reason not to hire me.
Do you suggest like if there's a drummer out there who just moved to a city, and because I get this question a lot of times, how do I get in a band? And we tell people, well, you got to network and get out there and meet people. And just like you said, a lot of these bands, it's not saying they don't, they might have a drummer, but something happens a week before the gig, a couple days before the gig, and they don't have time to really audition. So what extra steps are you going to have to that out there to that next drummer who's trying to get in that same band? And it seemed like you were once again strategic and thinking, you know what, I can stand apart if I get some video footage of me. And what better way to, hey, I'm looking for a drummer. Hey, take 30 seconds and look at me and look at this.
Yeah, yeah. You have to, it has to be there, because when people need when a band needs a replacement or they need someone, they go to their phone. They go and they look, who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know that I can text right now? And if you're not in those people's phones, you're never going to get text. You're never going to get the call.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not even going to get the opportunity. Like I knew back then, I was tell myself, I know I'm talented enough to play the gig, but I'm never going to get the invite. Mm-hmm. So you have to work to be the one that gets contacted about it. And
it's
that was
out of sight, out of mind. It kind of comes very true. The music industry is phenomenal, but it's definitely not like a regular, like you said, an application 9 to 5 process. There's no LinkedIn, back page type resume thing. I mean, your resume helps, but yeah, guys, you got to be networking and being these guys' phones, just like you said.
Yeah. How do you get a job that you can't apply for? That was the big, that was the big question when I was in high school. And I knew that my ultimate dream, like in a perfect world, I would be a professional drummer for somebody. But how do I make that happen? Like, right. Where do I apply? I'll go apply right now if you can show me where to apply.
So you found the steps you kind of chopped down some trees to build your own path
Yeah.
best way that you knew how. So let me tell you. So take that now until you say, okay, you're doing Texas, up and down Texas. I'm assuming now. Okay, you want to get out, travel the world on the music's dime. How did you make that happen? What was the next point in your career for that to happen?
So, so through my networking and my Facebook friending of every drummer I could find,
Borderline spam.
yeah, almost. I know I was really annoying to some of them, but one of those Facebook friends had a gig that he had taken another gig, couldn't do this one, and he sent me a text one day and said, "Hey, can you fill in for me on this tour?" It was like a 7-week tour that he couldn't do, and I was like, yes, absolutely. I didn't even really know what it was.
How did I even imagine though? Like, let's just pause right there because you wanted to move and be like, hey, I just want to get the gig. And that's probably like an amazing feeling. Oh man, somebody called me to do a gig. And I'm sure your first gig, you're probably gonna make $35-$50 and it's awesome, right? Now here it is. How does it feel for somebody to say, hey, 7-week gig? And for that, you know if somebody's doing 7 weeks, they probably gonna be pretty.
Awesome. Yeah. It was, yeah, that was the summer of 2012. So that would be 5 years since I moved to be with that first rock band.
Wow.
I went from 5 years from moving to town as the new guy, not knowing anybody.
From
5 years later, I had my first, hey, can you fill in for me on this tour? It starts in 3 weeks. And so then I had to do a really hard thing, which I've never done before, which was quit a gig. I never actually had to tell someone I quit, and that was kind of hard. But I had 3 weeks to get ready, so I gave 3 weeks notice and instantly started preparing and learning other songs and sent some videos back and forth with the band, but had never met any of these guys and was just going to pack up. And the tour started in Michigan, so I had to pack up.
Met those guys at Michigan at the first gig for the first time.
Yeah, we had 1 day of rehearsal before, we had the day before the first show. And it was great. I mean, I was prepared. I learned all the music.
Right.
They were playing it the same way they did on the album. Nothing was different. So it was, I just studied it in my head, and we got to know each other over the first, we got to know each other through playing shows together. Like, it was really cool experience.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you did the 7 weeks tour. If you don't mind, which band was that that was Evans Blue. Okay. Very nice. So how long did that run go with them?
We did 7 weeks, and then we had a 2-week break, and then we did like another 2 weeks after that.
Okay.
And during, after those last 2 weeks, I didn't have anything else lined up. It was really kind of scary again because
you thought you were going to go through that whole.
I'd been really lucky with landing these steady long-term gigs that after being on this long 7-week long tour, or actually it was more like 12 weeks, it was really scary to be back at home in Austin, or the thought of being at home with no gigs lined up was kind of scary. But that was when Grainger called me, which was who's the gig I'm currently on. And that was again from just all guys.
Did you know Grainger before, or did you just? Okay.
I was friends with all those guys. I'd met them, just musicians, from meeting them in town and meeting them at other gigs and meeting them at other shows, and just.
But not 5 years prior to when you first moved to be a professional musician, you did not know Granger Smith.
I did not know him. I knew some guys in his band from way back then.
Yeah.
But it was all just part of my, network of friends and network of buddies that were out playing. It was the same. It just goes to show that it's really about it's really about who you know and who your friends are playing with, because almost every gig I had my whole career came from either the drummer who had it had to leave and called me to fill in,
Right.
or someone else in the band was like, let me text Dusty and ask who he knows, because they either knew that I would do it myself or I would know someone who could do it for,
Right.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. So how did that call come from Granger? Was it just through like MySpace or Craigslist or?
No,
Okay.
he had texted me a couple times years before asking for a drummer, and I had recommended him a guy that he used for several years, and then came time for him to need a drummer again, and he just went right back to me. He said, "Hey man, I need a drummer.
Yeah.
Who do you know is looking for a gig?" And right then at that time it was the last week of the Evans Blue Tour, so I was the drummer that was looking for a gig. And I said, "Yeah, man, I'll do it. I'll cover for you. Just send me your songs." And so, and he knew we were pretty good friends by then, and everyone in his band I've been friends with for years. So there was no audition process. They knew. They sent me the songs, and I would learn them. It was just like me going from this rock band gig of total strangers, which I was really good friends with by 7 weeks. But it was going from that, I was able to just fall right back into a band of my buddies back home. It was really cool.
I mean, that also shows that not only are you fabulous at networking, obviously, but you must be a really cool guy, because some people would, they just don't know it at the time, but they ruin relationships because maybe they don't get the call, or maybe that opportunity doesn't come, say 2 years ago. But just like you've proven, you stayed consistent, you kept your head up, you kept those healthy relationships, and it's almost like a biannual audition. You kind of get, if it didn't work out the first time, might not work out the second time, but just be cool, keep working on your craft, and it seems like it'll always just come back around obviously when the timing was perfect. You actually needed that gig at the time.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on it, something always worked out, whether it was a string of tiny gigs to get me through until a big one showed up, or if it was, me falling, coming home without a gig and having one, and 3 days later, like it was, something always worked out as long as I just
stay consistent.
Didn't give up. Yeah.
So let's talk about, so now, all right, so you're with Granger now.
Yeah. So that's been almost 8 years now.
Wow. That's been 8 years?
8 years.
Time flies. I was thinking like 4, but wow.
This August will be eight years.
Man, that's a nice run, man. And congratulations, man, to the whole band, Granger. You guys, I've seen you guys' growth, I guess, for over 8 years. For the 8 years, I mean, y'all been on Jimmy Kimmel. Y'all done like I said, the Staples Centers. So when you first started, I'm not sure he wasn't that big.
No.
How was that starting?
Well, when I went from Evans Blue to Granger, I actually went from a bus back to a van. But they had they had a really awesome setup. I tell people all the time they were the most motivated band I'd ever played with.
Really?
Most bands are always struggling to gain more fans. Granger was struggling to handle the amount of fans he had. When I joined him was right after kind of his blow up on social media. So we were going to shows and our jaws would be on the floor of the van with how many cars would be, how many cars we'd have to drive through to get to the back door of the club to load in. It was a really cool experience. I was really used to playing for empty clubs at that point. Like even, all the bands before were, even though we were busy, we would have lots of bad nights. The Friday nights and Saturday nights would be good, but all the rest would be, thin crowds. But with Granger, it was getting to the point where it was almost sold out every night wherever we went. And there were some cities where we wouldn't even know how many people we could have had because there were people in line that never made it in.
Wow.
Through the whole night. So it was I definitely knew there was something more than just a band struggling to make something happen. This was a band struggling to keep up with it and struggling to entertain these people more.
So take me a little bit into like from somebody outside looking in. You go from, like you said, a bus to a van. Now you're on a van back to a bus. So I mean, how is that? What's the process of going through that? I mean, because what's the process, I guess, of being on the road, kind of starting with Grainger to now? I mean, I understand the fans and all of that, but as far as like just the everyday mindset, were you thinking, man, okay, he's blowing up, man, we finna be the next big thing? Are you expecting kind of like that bus lifestyle that you have now? Did it live up to the roses of everything, your imagination that we see because you haven't experienced it, or is it a little bit less, or what's your thought on that?
It was, by then in my very first rock band in 2007 through 2010, we were very up and down. Like when something big would happen, we would get super excited about it.
Right.
And then, throughout my gigs after that, I was just the drummer. So if something good happened, I was just the hired on drummer. So it wasn't really my victory.
Right.
And so over the years, I get a little more realistic head on my shoulders. And, we know, when you go from a van to a bus, it's awesome. It's nice and it's comfortable. But you're very thankful of it because in my career, I've gone from a van back to a bus,
right,
or from a bus back to a van many times. And actually, Grainger and the band, we still own the old van. It still sits there parked right next to the buses, and we use it a lot. So we still have it. And
just a reminder that
as a reminder and as a fallback.
Okay. So, all right. So now your mindset, is it the same going into those empty clubs on a Tuesday night versus now playing in front of, say, 73,000 people at Stagecoach before the gig?
It's the same, but it's, the big shows have more, people always ask me if I get nervous before a show, and I only get nervous about equipment working. If it's just me playing drums to me is really natural, and being on stage is natural. And I've been in this band for 8 years. So being on stage with this group of guys, there's nothing to be nervous about anymore.
Sure.
Playing wise, equipment wise, I get nervous about, is the power going to go out?
We was talking earlier this week or yesterday, and you said you actually experienced that at one of the festivals or big stages.
It was Starland Ballroom in Sayersville, New Jersey, which is an awesome venue. The power went out, but not like, I don't know exactly which power went out. Some power went out somewhere, and in those situations on stage, from being in so many rock bands and cover bands, playing all night, when something like that happens, sometimes you don't stop, or you shouldn't stop. And I always have this thing in my head, anytime something goes wrong on stage, to not stop, just to play through it and fix it, and then keep on with the song, or see if you can just try to make it not obvious to the crowd that anything's going wrong. Right. So that night in New Jersey, when the power went out,
Because you got all your MIDI stuff and you got a lot of technical stuff going on.
It just went down. It went from all that, went down to just a drum set on stage in a room full of people. There was no PA. There was no guitar amps. There was nothing. It was just me kicking a kick drum with a sold out room full of people clapping. They started chanting. It was really cool. And so after, about 10 minutes of that, which was very energy filled, it was really awesome. After about 10 minutes, the crew guys had the problem fixed, and we were able, we just picked up the song right where we left it off, right at the end. And it was obvious that the crowd knew something was going on because there was no sound. But
y'all stayed pro, and
we kept it. We stayed on stage, kept playing, used that moment to pump some people up and turn it into, kind of a bonding experience between the band and the audience. And then when it all came back on, we launched back into the song. The lights were on, the PA's back on. And when that song ended, the crowd, they go wild because they realize what happened.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like the band scored a touchdown at the end by finishing.
I think that's kind of cool.
I've talked to a couple of people, and we're on stage and we're freaking out. We're like, oh man, this is not how we planned it. But I think for the people in the audience, that's almost a cool thing because they can go back and be like, yeah, I was at the show when they messed up, or this. I was at the Grammys when Adele kind of forgot her lines or something. Her earpiece went wrong, and I didn't have the best seat in the world.
Yeah.
I was top in the the nosebleed section, but it was kind of cool I could say, you know what, I didn't watch that on TV that night. I was kind of there when, shit went wrong. Awesome. It's kind of a cool thing, especially when you can be pro and play it off and still keep that energy. Yeah. So man, good job for you guys. Hey, so what's a quick rundown of your setup for the guys that want to know your drum setup?
Well, I have I have to count how many pieces it is. 7-piece. So I've got a kick, a snare drum, and then I've got a 20-inch gong drum, which is basically a sideways kick drum to my left side. Some drummers have a side snare, like a second snare drum to their left.
Right.
And I did for a long time until I realized I just wasn't using it that much. So I took it out and replaced it. My gong drum was over on my floor tom side for a long time, and I moved it over to the kick drum side or the hi-hat side. It's I have an 8-inch tom, 2 rack toms, 2 floor toms, cymbals all around. But it's the electronics in the kit that really help with the show, the way the show flows. I have a Drumcat controller that is kind of a navigation controller to all the different sections of the songs. I have a pedal on the floor that runs through our set in Ableton. I use Ableton Live to run the click tracks and the video wall content for each song, and it does some stuff with the lights. Like it'll turn things off at certain parts of the song, run scenes, and
you have all that pre-recorded. You do all that.
I don't do it. We have other people we have video content guys that make the video. We'll have to make a time code file that we drop in to. I'll drop the time code file into the tracks, and then I chop each song up into different versions of different lengths, and then I have all those sections mapped to different pads on my controller. So with every song, when we start a song, the computer sends a message to the Drumcat that turns the Drumcat onto whatever song I just started. And each pad is a different verse or chorus. And so as we play through the song, if something goes wrong, like the power goes out in the middle of the second verse, I can hit stop and I can loop a click that'll keep the band on until we get everything handled, whatever problem it is. Or even if it's not a problem, sometimes if the singer just wants to talk to the crowd instead of sing,
right.
Whenever he starts singing again and gets back on track, wherever we are in the song, whether it's verse 2, chorus 2, the last chorus or whatever, I hit the pad for wherever we want to start, and the computer goes from a looping state to jump to wherever I just started, and it jumps the video, it jumps the click track, it jumps everything. Everything jumps to wherever we just started. So it lets us be flexible, like you said, on those like spontaneous nights when something goes wrong. It's a way that it turns our computer into more of a band member instead of a computer.
Right.
Yeah. So you're getting the CD studio version of the song with the big sound and the what you guys hear on the radio.
Yeah,
but
what you expect to hear.
What you expect to hear, but through running it through Ableton in the way that Dusty has everything set up, you're still getting a live performance feel where everything is not so syncopated. It still gives, like he said, it gives Grainger the freedom to, hey, I want to communicate with the audience, and he can still play around with the track. So if you're doing live stuff, be sure to go check out Ableton Live. I think that's pretty much the go-to for.
It works the best. The way the DAW is organized and the way it works is more conducive to launching a song at a time, instead of like the way Pro Tools and Logic and other timeline-based DAWs work. You just hit start and they play, and they have a playhead that scrolls down a timeline. And that alone is not how Ableton works. Ableton works like one big giant sampler, and you're just launching tracks.
Right.
And then when the tracks are done, they just run out and they go to stop. They go to a stopped state, and then you're ready to launch the next song or the next moment.
So you've given a lot of insight, and I know right now personally you're taking a lot of time and effort while being on the road to give more insight through a YouTube page, through, I know, helping people understand exactly what we're talking about, MIDI and stuff like that. So where can people kind of find you, and maybe you can share a little bit of what you got going now?
My YouTube channel is just my name, Dusty Saxton. I think youtube.com/Dusty Saxton will get you there. Or you can just go to YouTube and just search my name. I'm trying to make a series of videos that will explain what I have learned and what I've learned and how I apply it to my live environment. Because when I was trying to figure out how to do all this, there was no YouTube videos of how a band on stage can do what I wanted to do. And I had to contact and email a lot of DJs to figure out how they use Ableton and how to control Ableton through MIDI with MIDI controllers. So with my YouTube channel, I've been trying to put all this complicated MIDI talk into actual videos that can animate and like show exactly what's happening, instead of just me talking and trying to explain it in words. I'm trying to tell it through videos,
Yeah,
man, what better way, guys? Like he said, 10 years ago, we didn't have this opportunity or access to get an inside scoop, or somebody who's playing at the Staples Centers, somebody who's playing worldwide on national tours. Like, this guy's taking time. I mean, these guys are busy. He's taking time and really showing you, hey, this is exactly what I'm doing. And man, thank you for that. Like, I can't wait to actually sit in and watch some more videos that you put out. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
So, man, this has been, like, I think a awesome conversation. Before we take it out, man, is there anything? I appreciate your heart of giving back to the music community. You're one of these guys who it's definitely gonna make these 14 Keys of Thinking Like a Pro series just elevated, because you've told your story of somebody who basically started from, I call it the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the dream, and you've proven and broken down within a short time frame strategically how you changed that bottom to now you're in a very good, consistent position as a musician. Is there anything that you might want to end and tell the up and coming musicians? Maybe just give them some tips and tricks.
Yeah. Well, especially right now with most of the music business or most of the touring business kind of shut down. I feel like if this is
COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like if this had happened any time earlier in my career, that it would have really shut me down and I might not have ever recovered from it. Because there were a lot of hardships in my early days, but nothing that was as this bad. I mean, even when I didn't have any gigs, I still had some gigs. I wasn't unable to play gigs. Or if a band ended, I could just go get another gig. But now you can't even go get another gig because there's just no shows. So what I would tell people a lot back then is sometimes when you feel like you're not accomplishing anything at all, just not giving up sometimes is an accomplishment. So in this time when everything, you might feel hopeless, whatever momentum you may have built going into this year, it might feel like all that momentum is lost and it's all gone. But when I look back on my career, my biggest key to success was just that I never stopped.
Wow, man, that's the most powerful thing you can say right there. And man, I don't think there's much more to say right there, guys. Is once again, there's no big secret to making it out here. It's almost the survival of the fittest. If you want to make it, don't quit. If you want to be called a creator, wake up every day and create. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. Well, man, y'all be sure to check out my good friend Dusty Saxton on YouTube. Watch his videos, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Man, thank you once again for taking time out of your schedule to come on and just to have this conversation with me. Once again, guys, this is the KeyZ Method. I'm Kris KeyZ, and you've been listening to 14 Keys to Thinking Like a Pro. Thank you, Dusty.
You're welcome. Thank you.